What, you have a podcast?
Really?
Computer, show the historical documents.
It's just time for a theocratic monarchy. King Trump, for life. Let's go.
I said, no, Sean, I'm going to be a dictator. I said, in 4 years, you don't have to vote.
Hello, friends and enemies, and welcome to another episode of Recovery from Politics Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Frame, and today is Monday, June 24th, 2024. Yesterday, the Washington Post had a piece on a shrinking Pennsylvania town. And the point was, it's a microcosm of what's happening across the Midwest. And it's mostly a fluff piece. I wish the article was more than just a sad sob story and ask tougher questions, but mostly it's them going to the 80-plus-year-old geriatric community and asking them, how do you feel about the high school closing down? What do you think about the fact that there's no working ambulance in your town, that you actually have to contract from another town to come in and come get you, and whether or not that's affecting deaths, and what do you think of the fact that more people die here than are born here, and so on and so forth, and nobody has any answers. None of the people that live in the town have the answers. And another thing that really bugged me about the article was at no point did they try to reach out and say, well, here's this expert on, city growth, city life, something, city planning, and here's what they think about how to fix this problem. Because again, this isn't just this one town, it's a microcosm of what's going on across the Midwest of the United States. Is all these smaller towns are basically leaving. There's one bar, it closes at 9 p.m. There's only 2 small grocery stores, no chains to speak of, like one restaurant. It's a very, very small town. No kids at all. They had to close the daycare. So it's dying, basically. And every time they go to ask one of the 80-year-old people who work in the city council, how do you fix it? They're all just like, well, shucks, I don't know. And of course, the town is all strongly Republican. Either they, their political views are either, I don't like either Biden or Trump, or I'm going to go with Trump because I think he supports me. And I think that's, it's like they're scratching the surface, but they didn't want to offend the people that they were interviewing, which I get on a one-on-one basis, excuse me, with even the most MAGA, right? If you avoid politics, if you just talk about real, honest-to-God issues that are affecting them in the moment, most people are pretty rational. And even though you may disagree with them, you don't just get a little blurb like you do on Xitt or Facebook or something else. There's an actual dialogue going on. They can say something. You can ask questions. They can answer, vice versa. There's that back and forth that is really integral to how we as human beings react to each other. And so I imagine the person who wrote this piece, who actually went down there and asked these questions, built up a rapport with them and understood things. Maybe the author themselves was from a small town, so they wanted to, really take a deep dive into this. But at no point were these people challenged. At no point did they say, well, what is it about Biden that you don't like? Because Biden, through his Build Back Better plan, which, I have a lot of problems with, and I don't think it really addressed the issue, has poured billions of dollars into these smaller communities. Specifically, he has increased broadband and Wi-Fi ranges in these areas. He wanted to give these people access to the internet, which I'm like, that's not actually what they need. They have access to whatever the hell they want, just because they're watching Fox News 24/7 because Fox News is free on just about every cable channel, every cable program in the world. You can always go to Fox every single time. All of them cover it, and it's free. They have access to that. Giving them internet is not going to be like, oh, thank God, I can finally leave Fox and go to the New York Times or the Washington Post or anywhere else. Like, that's not how people work, okay? You can give me more internet here. It's not going to make me suddenly want to go onto the Daily Caller, okay? It's just not. That's not how anyone's brains work. And yes, Biden's plan totally missed the mark on how to repair the problem that we have in this country where we're all, not communicating in the right way. He saw communication and was like, internet! Like, no, that was the promise of the 90s. In the 90s, when the internet was burgeoning and everything, I remember I was a high schooler then, and we were all like, yes. In fact, I can recall my valedictorian in my high school graduation was like, the internet's going to bring us all together and we're all going to be more informed than ever before. And it's like, no, the exact opposite has happened. So giving more internet, it's one of those like old people problems that Biden has, where he's like, he's stuck in his ways and he still has a very basic understanding of the internet from the 90s, and he's not getting it now. Like that's also kind of it. Like, he's got the anti-China bias with the TikTok ban, but he's also like, he does not understand social media at all. And he doesn't get why TikTok is popular or how algorithms work. I'm pretty sure my favorite question at the debate would be to ask him how he thinks algorithms work. Just an algorithm, not social media algorithms. Just define algorithm for me. Because I don't think he knows what that is. You know, there are a lot of gotcha questions out there. That one would probably be very informative to him and also Trump. But, I mean, the problem with asking Trump gotcha questions is we all know he doesn't know. So what the fuck's kind of the point? It's a waste of time to ask Trump what an algorithm is, because he wouldn't know. But anyway, you know, so billions of dollars have been spent in these towns by the current president. Yet they're all very much anti-Biden. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So they all think Trump actually cares about them, which, okay, fine, whatever. But again, at no point in this article does it ever challenge them. Does it ever say, hey, do you think maybe the last 40 plus years of you voting straight Republican down the line has backfired? Do you think that hasn't informed it? Do you think also that by voting that way, and then Democrats seeing you vote that way, start to pander to you by picking up Republican positions, do you think that backfired? Do you think maybe you guys were driving the conversation just a little too hard? Nobody asked that. Nobody does anything. Nothing. Because for me, I was reading this article, and the whole time I was just thinking, this is an easy fix. It's called immigration. It really is. It's called immigration. They keep talking about illegal immigration, and one of the questions I wish was asked to one of the leaders of this town was, hey, what if Biden or Trump, what if a presidential candidate, leave it blank, what if a presidential candidate said, I'm going to move 100 immigrant families into your small town to help with agriculture? Because that's really all this town has is agriculture right now, right? It's like, hey, guess who does all of America's agriculture right now? Immigrants and robots. That's it, right? Say the president said, I'm going to move 100 families into your town tomorrow who will help with agriculture industry. They will pay taxes in this town. They will shop in this town. They will eat at the restaurant. They will go to the bar. They will send their kids to the high school so the high school doesn't have to close. They will send their younger kids to the daycare so it doesn't have to close. The parents, some of them, will learn how to be EMTs, and they can work at the fire department, and they can work at the hospital. They can drive the ambulance. You know, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna send in 100 right now, because this town hasn't always been a small town. I mean, it's got homes, right? So we're gonna fix up these homes, and we're gonna put 100 families into it. And I bet you every single one of them would be like, fuck yes, that's amazing, that's great. Incentivize these families to come here, and then turn around and be like, okay, great. What if they're all Mexican? What if they're all immigrants? Every single one of them is a brown person who English was not their first language. And I guarantee you, every single one of these motherfuckers would immediately deny it. It's every single one of them. You know, especially the older ones. Maybe you'll find the 30-year-old alderman or whatever who's like, you know, as long as they do speak English, I suppose it wouldn't be too bad. But for the rest of them, nah, they're gonna be like, ugh. You know, you would see some pullback. You know, even if they did couch their words and make it sound in such a way that they're not racist as fuck, like you would see that initial seething, that recoil, I don't know, you know, and then eventually some of them might crack and be like, well, then crime would go up, and it's like, my fucking God, you idiots. So for me, the issue is very simple. You have an agricultural-based society here in this little microcosm of Pennsylvania. You need workers. You need people. Unfortunately, The president can't move a company into your small town. First off, there are too many small towns. The president, no matter who it is, they always celebrate the groundbreaking ceremony of some new factory being built out in the middle of fucking nowhere, and it's supposed to reinvigorate the local economy and pour millions, potentially billions of dollars into it all. But they can't do that in every town. The president is one person, and corporations don't want to move where they're going to fail. And if you're a small, struggling town and you don't have a population capable of working there, they're not going to go there. Like, no tech company is going to move to this northern Pennsylvania failing town. Everyone there is old as fuck. The title of the article, for fuck's sake, is, we're too old. It's a quote from one of the people there. We're too old. Too many old people. That's it. Sorry. Too many old people. Like, they're not going to move a tech company there. It would fail. It would massively fail. There's no way they're going to do it. So you have to build on what you have, and what you have is agriculture, and what would, build your community is some fucking diversity. Just think about, when people think about small towns, what do they think of? White, Christian, not too smart. I mean, that's just, oh, hello. That was Indy. Not too smart. That tends to be the stereotype, right? We think they're not too smart. We think the police are oppressive. There may be some kind of, if you're white in America, you may like the idea of a small town. Like, oh yeah, my kids could grow up. It's nice and peaceful, and so on and so forth, and everything. There is a romanticized part of it. A lot of that is from our media. There are a lot of shows based in small towns somewhere across the Midwest that are actually, pretty low key. Everybody's happy, and I'm always sitting there like, what's the industry there? Why do people even live there? Because unfortunately, the way the world works is if there's not a business, you can't work there anymore. You can't live there. It just doesn't work. You can't just have a small town. I mean, and this has always been the case. I mean, even, consider when the Transcontinental Railroad was being built, towns were built along the railroad because the railroad provided customers and the towns provided services for those people. There were a lot of hotels, motels, restaurants, cafes, lots of things for people to get off the train, stretch their legs, do a few small things, maybe get back on the train and keep going. Maybe not. Maybe that was their plan. But the point is like, towns grew out from that. Like, you need something to draw people to this town. You need that. And unfortunately, in these small towns, there's just nothing there. And because of our centralization, corporatization, there are no small businesses looking to go somewhere new. There's no incentivizing. If you're in tech, you're in Northern California for the most part. You're the West Coast, right? That's just how it is. You might have a New York business or two, in the city. New York City has a lot of that. But as far as new burgeoning businesses, you don't have much. We have retail, which can be done anywhere. And we have agriculture, which the Midwest should be good at. But again, we also have the factory farms, which take a lot of the work away. So what used to take 100 people picking crops now only takes one guy driving a machine. If that. Maybe he doesn't even drive the machine. The machine's on autopilot and he just, kicks back and doesn't do anything unless the damn thing breaks down. So we do have a system here that's designed this way. This is why, things like basic earned income is a thing. This is why people are saying we need to tax the corporations, pass the money on to the people, because eventually, the way things are going with AI, robotics, we are going to be replaced at every level possible. Capitalism kind of forces that on you because the goal is always to incentivize investment and return. And if it's always about a return on investment, eventually it's going to be like, okay, I can hire this human being and pay them $50,000 a year, or I can pay one time for a $100,000 machine to do the same job. I don't have to pay any benefits. I don't have to worry about workers' comp if something goes wrong. And after 2 years, I get my money back, and this machine can keep going in perpetuity, So this is the way it's going to go. Capitalism kind of forcing it. We have this tech bro idea of how to do things where you have to squeeze every single dime out of everything. And you see this in Hollywood, especially, where a movie can come out like Furiosa, be number one in the box office for several weeks in a row, but because it didn't make $200 fucking million, because it didn't make its budget back in the first week, it's considered a failure. I was just reading that movie cost $168 million to make. By the way, go see it. It's actually pretty good. I enjoyed it. It's just as good as Mad Max Fury Road, in my opinion. Different movies, but anyway. It cost $168 million to make. It just made $168 million this week. But even though it's dominated the box office, it's considered a failure. So that is it. And we're probably never going to get another one of those movies. And you have this issue where, Marvel came in and they made their huge cinematic universe and it was fantastic. So now you can have, the Marvels came out and it made, I think, $200, $300, maybe $400 million worldwide, and it was a failure. And it was like, made double its money back. Yeah, but it didn't make Endgame numbers. And it's like, dude, Endgame, completely different thing. But that's the tech bro-ization of our corporatocracy right now. You have to build things with the intent that it breaks, that it won't last forever because you need somebody to buy another one. You make it impossible for them to fix it on their own, so they have to either go to you again or buy a new one. See Apple for that one. If you want to try to fix your phone, you can't take it anywhere except an Apple place. So, our economy is set up in such a way that this is only going to get worse before it gets better. No one is working on fixing it. Especially Biden and the Democrats. They're all on board because they're worried if we don't, all the donor money is going to go to the Republicans, which, by the way, it is right now. So we do have this problem, and as far as I can tell, diversify the situation in these small towns. If you really wanted to be like, hey, you know what you need? You need people. You need people who want to raise families here in America, who want to work. They want to work. They want to do their job. They're here. Yes, they're getting benefits. They don't have to live in a criminal society where they were coming from. They don't have to live where there is no such thing as a minimum wage and they were only getting pennies on the hour. They don't have to live in fear that their children will not be educated. They don't have to worry about their kids being, brought into a gang. Gang life is like required or anything like that. They can literally move in tomorrow, do a job that is necessary, and live alongside you. And would you accept that? And the fact is, a lot of these small towns would reject that out of hand. They don't want immigrants there to do the necessary job that would actually reinvigorate their town or, at least keep it going. Because I do agree there is a place in Americana for the small town. These small towns are necessary. Otherwise, what do you have? You have Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Seattle, a couple big cities, and then just a vast wasteland in between. Empty ghost towns everywhere. That's not a strong culture. That's not a positive. And especially set up, if you think about, if you're worried about electoral politics, because of the Electoral College, because of how the Senate does its thing, the rural communities vastly have way too much power compared to the urban ones. Okay, California has more people in it than than the entire United States when the Constitution was signed. The idea that only 2 senators in California and 2 for North Dakota. I mean, if you were able to go in a time machine and tell them this is how it's going to be, I guarantee you they would not have created the system that they did. So it is very important that we do keep these rural communities vibrant and healthy as best we can. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one fix because we can't force corporations to go there. And any president, I don't care if they were FDR reborn today, any president who says, I'm going to build a lot of state-sponsored businesses in all these small towns to, we're going to create an economy to have people. They will be knocked as being a socialist, a communist, someone evil. And these same people who would benefit from that program, these same strong Republican small towns would go out and like they would go to the Capitol and burn it down before they would ever see either a president or any political party mandating a state business strictly to reinvigorate their town, or truck immigrants in to do the necessary jobs. Again, pay taxes, send your kids to schools, keep it building, keep it moving. Like, they would reject that out of hand. These small towns are victims of their own mentality, their own little small town think, and they won't get out of it. Another thing I had with this article was, I bring up the immigration thing, but they should have tied it into the Project 2025 plan to deport 20 million, that's their number, 20 million illegal immigrants, in air quotes. 20 million. And a lot of people are like, I think, I forget who, but somebody pointed out that's 6% of the United States population. That's 20 times more than what died in COVID. So if you know anyone who died from COVID, or if you notice that things are a little smaller today than it was 4 years ago, imagine that times 20. Everyone would know someone who was deported. There's no way you could get around it. And then, unfortunately, you have Republicans saying the quiet part out loud, like Chip Roy, and I'm going to post his thing right here, basically saying that the deportation isn't really for immigrants. It's for political opposition. He wants to deport anyone who opposes the Republican Party. That's me. Supposedly that's you. Yes. Yeah. What? Aw. You sound sad. This is Indy. He sounds sad. Oh, and he doesn't want love. Okay. Sorry for the interruption. But this 2025 plan is very real. It will become the 2029 plan as soon as this election's over, assuming Trump loses. It is a very serious thing, and the idea of deporting 20 million people. First off, where? Where do you deport them to? Mexico's not going to take 20 million fucking people. Doesn't matter. They're not. There will be camps. And since we've already dehumanized people and put them into camps, what do you think happens? I mean, for fuck's sake, look at our own prison system. And that's a system that is actually very well funded. I mean, but look at what we have done there. Look at what happens to someone who has to go to prison. It's not a good situation. It's something we need to consider. It's something we need to take into account. This piece, it's a fluff piece. It's isn't it sad? The small towns are failing. And it is sad, because I do like the idea of small towns. I don't want to live in one, but that's my own personal preference. I know there are people who do, and I do see the romanticized portion of it. You know, the idea of, oh yeah, it would be nice if my kids and, the whole town kind of gets up for that minor league baseball game, and everything's, more or less happy. Sorry, I have a cat climbing. Is he gonna knock things over? He can knock things over. We don't know. But anyway, the small town thing. I don't know. I will link the Washington Post article if you can get past their, paywall. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. I can't undo that. What are you? Pardon me. Okay, thanks a lot for that. Sorry, we had technical difficulties with my cat. Anyway, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is there's lots of talk about what Republicans want to do in regards to abortion and women's rights in this country. And they always talk about what's next. And right now, we all know that what they really want is Trump to get in, them to control the House, the Senate, which they're projected to do regardless of who's next president. They are projected to win the House and the Senate, or at least the House is a toss-up. But, yeah. And what they would like to do is to federally ban abortion. And they know the Supreme Court will back them on that. So, once they do that, They're also going to come after a lot of, pregnancy prevention methods. I am screwing up here. They're gonna change sex ed to be abstinence only type of a deal. Contraception. They're gonna come after contraception. So contraception is gonna be on the table. Abortion's on the table. Sex ed's gonna be on the table. We already see they're trying to put the 10 Commandments in schools. You can see that there are a lot of small things they're doing in a few red states that they're trying to set precedent now in the Supreme Court, so that way the federal government is trying to do it, because the state, at the state level, the state legislatures are much more radicalized than federal Congress, believe it or not. For every Marjorie Taylor Greene you see in actual Congress, there are 20 of them in just about every state Republican Party in the country, more so in the red states. So they are much more radicalized. They're way crazier. They want to go full on. And so they're passing these laws in the small states, so that way it goes to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court kind of hand waves, gives their, omni-domni, it's good to go. And that signals to the federal government, to Congress, oh, we can do that. So that's the entire point of the whole thing. And, we're projecting a lot of the Handmaid's Tale onto them. That's what we're doing right now. And Project 2025, if you've looked into it, has a lot of supporting information. The thing that bothers me, and the thing I want to see, is politicians be held to account by the media. I would like them to be asked, hey, hypothetical, you get your wish. Abortion's banned. Abstinence only in schools, and contraception is out the window. What's next? And seriously question these people as to what is next. When will it stop? When will you sit back and be like, you know what? I have accomplished everything I have set out to accomplish. I'm going to resign from the Senate or the House. I'm going to let somebody else do it. I'm going to sit back, retire on my porch with my glass of lemonade or bourbon, and I'm just going to live peacefully, knowing that I fixed America. What's your end game? Like, seriously, put them on the spot. Don't just ask them what they want to do next year or next term. Ask them, hey, what is your goal? What would be your it? What's next? Congratulations, you've stopped abortion in America. Now what? That energy has to go somewhere. And that's the thing that you have to understand. This is the difference, because I know that the right would come back at me and be like, oh, that's what we ask you about guns, and you guys always say you're not going to do anything. Well, there's an issue I have with that, and it's very simple. The right has tied its major issues to religion. And religion doesn't know how the fuck to stop. It doesn't. It creates a fervor around it that is uncontrollable. That's how we knew, the second the Supreme Court handed down the Dobbs decision, that it unlocked Pandora's box of how far we could go. That's how we knew ahead of time. The second that decision was leaked, Congress is going to start talking about a federal ban. Immediately, within 72 hours of that happening, there were people on the record, Lindsey Graham was one of them, saying, I think next is a federal ban. Like, that is what they're doing. Like, we always know that. And it's not necessarily the politicians. Some of them are true believers. Some of them are just followers, and they are following what their congregants want. And the congregants want that. The, religious apparatus, it will not be satisfied. You can't tell all these people who have been radicalized in the church to oppose abortion at all costs, to, it's between a man and a woman, and the woman needs to be the caretaker of the family, and the man needs to go out. Okay, you can't turn off radicalization. So we do have a very strong radicalized right wing in this country, especially in the religious side. So when it comes to abortion, what is the end? Well, first, they're going to ban abortion. But obviously, those will still happen. They always have. So then there will have to be a punishment. So then they'll criminalize that act. And at first, they'll start with go after the doctors, because nobody wants to punish the woman yet. That won't work. Then they'll go after the woman. And jail time's just not cutting it. So, you know what? It's the death penalty. But these things will still keep happening. So it's very important that, I think we ask these politicians, hey, suppose you get your wish. Like, what's next? And you can ask me about guns all day. You can say, Kyle, if you ban machine guns, what's next? Assault rifles. I want weapons that were designed to go onto the battlefield should not be sold to civilians. We already kind of have this. You can't go buy a grenade. You can't buy a bazooka, right? I mean, you got to go to the black market for those things. For fuck's sake, at least make it that way with other weapons. Most assault rifles were designed specifically for that. If it were really up to me, but I understand politics, I wouldn't do this. But if it were up to me, if I had a magic wand and just could omni-domni do things the way I want to, I would eliminate handguns. Pistols. They were designed for one thing and one thing only: killing another human being. That's it. You can't say, oh, I hunt with my 9mm. No, the fuck you do not. And if you do, you're just fucking around. You're not being serious. I would seriously reject that. I say, no, that was designed specifically to kill a human being. If everything goes right, someone's dead. That bothers me. That statement bothers me. If the gun functions correctly, if the person using it fires it correctly, another person is dead. If everything goes right, someone is dead. That bothers me. I don't think shit like that should exist. I certainly don't think it should be legal. You want to have a rifle, you want to have a shotgun in your home for self-defense? Fine. You want to say, what if there are 50 liberals out there who want to come get me? Well, what the fuck are you paying the cops for? And then if you tell me, well, in Uvalde, they didn't even go in. Yeah, maybe that's the problem. Maybe that is the issue. Just saying. Maybe you want to fix that issue. So, we do have these issues going on on the left and the right. We're projecting, but we're not following up. We're not asking the question. So really, that's what I'd like. If anybody asks me, what are you looking for in this debate? Not much. It's gonna be crazy. It's a shit flinging contest. That's all it's gonna be. My prediction, if you want to see what this debate's like, go watch the last one that these two guys had. It's gonna be pretty much the same. Biden's gonna try to keep his cool. Maybe say, oh, hell, shut up, man, again. And Trump's just going to be lying a minute, and I don't think it's going to matter at all. I mean, personally, I find people who, I'm just undecided, and I'm going to wait for the presidential debate to make up my mind. I'm sorry, you're a fucking idiot. You are. You have no information. You've either chosen to say that as a cop-out because you don't want to admit that you're voting for somebody, or maybe you just want to hold off on making a decision as long as possible because you're a procrastinator like that. But to honestly say, I'm waiting for the debate to learn something. No, you're not. Nobody learns anything in debates. Not today. Maybe way back when, Lincoln Douglas is always brought up and JFK versus Nixon is brought up, and maybe there was something interesting to learn from a debate back then. These days, especially with media the way it is, I don't need a debate between these two to know what's going on. One of them insulting the other isn't going to give me some enlightened knowledge. I already hate both of these fuckers. I wish both of them would drop dead tomorrow. Of natural causes. Or, whatever. Natural causes. Sure. They both drop dead tomorrow of natural causes. And then we can move on to a new generation that has different ideas, for fuck's sake. But right now, I'm not learning anything from these guys. But if there were questions you could ask, I would honestly ask, what's next? You get your dream. What is your end game? You don't even need the end game. You know what? Throw the end game out. Just what's your next step? Trump gets in. Okay, Congress has passed this bill. Say you signed it. I don't even want to know if you would or not. That's not the question, because in reality, we all know what would happen. Say it's law. Now, abortion is illegal across the land. What's your next step? Now, I know Trump in reality would just bloviate and say some bullshit and a word salad that doesn't really make sense and kind of answer the question, but also kind of not, because he's not that smart and he doesn't think about what the fuck is next. But those are also good questions for Biden. Hey, big question. Hypothetically, Netanyahu kills all the Gazans. Like, all of them. What are you going to do next? Let's say you have completely funded and backed this man the whole time he's murdering Gazans. All the Gazans are dead. Men, women, children. All of them. Every single one. Gone. What do you do next with Israel? Are they still your ally? Are they still your best bud? You still going to defend them? Like, that would be me. I know they're not even going to ask. They won't go there. But that's me. That's what I think we should be asking. Hey, what's next? What the fuck is your end game? Like, I think that's more telling than anything else. Like, attack Biden for his college debt program, because it doesn't really solve the problem. It just kicks the can and makes a few people happy now, and it makes a few headlines and creates a debate, but it doesn't solve the problem, right? Kids are still taking out loans they're never going to be able to pay back. And potentially my kids in a few years will also do that. So it doesn't solve shit. So the question is, okay, what would be next? And on the left, it's like, well, eventually college would be free. Eventually, that's the goal. We would keep doing these incremental steps, and the end game is college is 100% free. That's our end game. Free college. Same thing with healthcare. What's your end goal? Say you get your dream, you Obamacare 2.0, Biden care, and then what? Well, eventually we would move towards this. Like, that is the end game, But with Republicans, it's like, okay, what's your end game with immigration? All the immigrants are gone or dead. Huh, that's weird. What's your goal with the Second Amendment? Every gun is legal to every person, man, woman, and child in this country. That seems dangerous. Okay, this is something. You have to see this. What's your goal with abortion? Eventually, any woman who gets an abortion will be killed at the stake. We'll burn her alive. There is an end game to this. Religion has done this in the past. It will continue to do this. You have radicalized all these people. How do you stop it? Do you want to stop it? Do they want to stop it? And I'll guarantee you, politicians do not want to stop it, because those are the people that guaranteed they donate to their cause and they vote. So they're not going to stop, hey, everybody, the problem's solved. You don't need to vote anymore. Unless there's no more elections. Okay, guys, that's it for me today. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time.